Hey y'all, Katie here with Team Evo AZ at eXp Realty. Thank you so much for listening to our show. We are super excited for this season. As you know, we are based in the Phoenix, Arizona area, but what you may not have known is that we're growing our team nationwide, and we have already started. So if you know of anybody that is looking to buy or sell throughout the country, no matter what state it's in, please contact us. We'd be happy to help. We'd be happy to offer advice. And if you know of anybody that is either getting into the real estate industry or is looking for an awesome change in their career and in their lives, we are also hiring real estate agents across the country. Thanks again and enjoy the show.
All right.
Hey everybody, it's 2021 and it's Katie and
Matt
with R.E.A.L, and that stands for real estate and life. So it's real with Matt and Katie. We are the married couple that has been in the real estate industry forever and a day here in the Phoenix area. And yeah, Happy New Year. Like, we're so excited to welcome in 2021, aren't we?
Yes, and probably equally excited to say peace to 2020.
I don't think anybody disagrees with us. All right. Well, welcome, Ryan. Of course, we have Ryan Gilliam with Waterstone Mortgage with us today, because today is our monthly real estate update. And this is where, you and I and you come together, talk about what's been going on for the last month here in the real estate world in our local Phoenix, Arizona market. So without further ado, shall we?
Yes, let's do it.
All right, Ryan.
Welcome, Ryan.
I'm excited. Thank you for having me. Happy 2021, everyone. And yeah, it's just, especially the past couple of weeks since we rolled into the new year, I've been getting a lot of questions. Everybody's asking, what's going to happen in the new year? What does 2021 look like? So I've been getting a lot of those questions, and I've been doing a lot of research. So I'm glad we're kind of addressing it on this podcast. And I've been telling everybody two things. I think it's going to be a great time to buy again, because one, rates are expected to stay low. And two, with the high demand and tight supply, we really feel like homes are going to continue to appreciate. I was reading anything between 5 to 6% in 2021, still going to continue. So yeah, I really do feel like it's going to continue to be a great time to buy. How do you guys feel about it?
Totally agree with you. And as always, I have a couple of interesting little slides to show that kind of show where our inventory is right now. And just to sort of piggyback off of what you said about 2021 still being, lower in inventory and a great time to buy, low interest rates, that kind of thing. I totally agree. And I'm seeing lower inventory levels right now than ever in my entire career that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So
I agree with all that she said, and I do believe that 2021 is going to be a great year,
So in terms of rates, let's talk about that a little bit, if you don't mind. I get every Monday, your rate update, which is awesome. Thank you for sending that. And rates recently ticked up just a tad. What's going on with that?
They did. Yes, they did tick up just a little bit. And a lot of that had to do with, of course, the elections, the Senate elections last year, and the market kind of getting an idea of how things are going to pan out with the new administration. And, one of the big news that really impacted rates probably the most is Janet Yellen. She was actually nominated as Treasury Secretary. So what that basically is doing is that she's been known to be a spender on spending programs. And what that means, in order to do that, what the government has to do is they have to sell treasuries, which is government debt. And it's been historically shown that government debt, when that increases, rates do drop with it. They've seen that recently in the past couple of years in Japan, China, Italy, and they do feel like 2021, that's going to be kind of the big story, and that's what's going to keep interest rates low. So when at first it's announced and debt starts to be taken out, there's always a little bit of a jump. But once that debt is due back, that's when rates start trending down. So that's why we saw a little bit of a jump, but we do feel like the long-term trend will continue to be lower.
And you feel like it's throughout the year, or is that hard to tell?
We do. Yes, we do feel like it's going to be throughout the year. If anything, maybe towards the last quarter, we might see them kind of ticking back up. But for the majority of the year, they do feel like they're going to continue to stay low.
Interesting.
How do you feel about that?
I feel that's probably all very, very correct. Just from everything that I'm reading, everything that I'm feeling, kind of reflecting on all that I've seen, it seems like that's exactly what's going to happen. I don't think the nation is ready for rates to go up, and we're stuck here. Ryan, you get a chance to kind of feel feel the pulse of the rest of the nation because you're involved in other markets. Us
Yes.
being here in Arizona, we're really focused on Arizona, and it's really not. It's kind of its own little monster when compared to the rest of the country. So I think that you look at our state of what's happening here and say, oh yeah, we could probably handle rates going up a little bit just with our inventory levels and all that stuff. But unfortunately, this is all based on national level stuff. And it sounds like, a lot of the rest of the country is really nowhere near as positive as Arizona is.
Yes.
I actually, to kind of go off onto that real quick, I was reading this really, really interesting thing about delinquency rates and how the rest of the country is going up. In Phoenix, the delinquency rate is actually down. We're down to 4.5% from our high of 5.3% in May of 2020, that's crazy when you think about everything that you're hearing across the news and COVID and how it's affecting us and job loss and all that, which, that's crazy. Then you jump to see that the rest of the country is at a 6.1 rate. So we're way below that. The other really last interesting thing was, our negative equity in Arizona. Our negative equity is only at 2%.
Well, that's
so when you
extremely
think
low.
about that, that's so much insulation and says so much about Arizona and the fact that even if we are affected nationally and it pushes us we're very insulated. We have some great numbers, and I think this just all contributes to what we're talking about in 2021.
I agree.
I totally agree. I think we're going to have to see a massive influx of properties come onto the market before we slow and start to head the other way. I don't know if we could even do that in a year's time with the way we're going. So let me show you just a couple of slides that have some pretty interesting statistics on them. Let's look at this one first. You see that slide right there? It's kind of maybe a little bit small, but can you see it?
Wow, look at that. Yeah.
Months inventory.
Wow.
Yeah. I have never, ever, we've gotten close over the last couple of months, gotten close to the 1 month mark, but never have I ever seen it dip below 1. Not ever.
Wow.
It's unbelievable. So basically, as you know, but for those of you out there, this just means if no new listings came onto the market and we still ran at the pace that we're running at, we would have every single listing bought up in under a month's time.
Wow.
Isn't that incredible?
That's incredible.
Also, I pulled a few numbers before we hopped on here. We only have 3,951 active single family homes on the market. We finally have dipped below the 4,000 mark. Never in our career have we ever seen it, I don't think, below 10,000, never mind below 5,000, now below 4.
Yeah.
And that's just single family homes.
Yeah.
If you want to add in, your mobile homes, you want to add in your condos, townhomes, things like that, it only pops it up to 5,608.
Yeah.
And I was reading a couple other things I thought was really interesting. One, the median age of first-time home buyers is 33 years old.
Yep.
And if you look back 33 years ago, there was a boom in babies. It's like the heart of the millennial generation. So there's going to be a large amount of first-time home buyer millennials that are going to be hitting the market, this year or next year. So, and really, like you were showing, that there's not supply out there. With COVID, a lot of the builders, the building dropped quite a bit last year because of that. And that's what we kind of rely on to help out with inventory is new builds as well. So, a mixture of first-time home buyers hitting the market, not as many new builds out there. I think it's just going to continue to be super hot, and homes are going to continue to appreciate.
1,000%. I'm working with several new build clients right now, and one in particular is looking in a specific community in the North Phoenix area, and they are at a bidding. It's not a lottery that they're doing. How some builders will do a lottery, you get on a list, and then it's luck of the draw if you're going to get chosen. They're actually doing bidding wars, so this is fun. They release only 2 or 3 lots every 2 weeks. Okay, 2 or 3 lots. Now, it's ridiculous how many thousands of buyers there are out there. Okay. 2 or 3 lots that they release in a week's time, and you have X amount of days, 2-3 days to bid on that lot. So you're actually bidding on just the lot premium. So let's just say the lot is $5,000. Well, my buyers are coming in at 10 grand, 15 grand, 20 grand for this lot. And that's just the lot before they pop the house on it. Yeah. It has been probably never in my career that I've ever bid on lots like that at a builder. Have you?
No, but I would say at the crux of 2005, this was pretty much that was the point where new builds were really getting creative, because they realized there was a supply and demand issue. And I think now, they've had a lot of time to reflect on that, and they're really thinking about what they can do right now and, realistically not offset what they're trying to achieve. And that's, they're in a weird situation too, these builders. You think about it, because they know they have the demand, but now they're getting squeezed on the other side by material costs, by labor shortages. There's a lot of things that, that they're literally pinched between. You start looking at these large tracts of land, like D.R. Horton just picked up in East Mesa, all the way to the Superstitions, just east of Eastmark. If anyone's familiar, like the R.E.A.L and Elliott area, right around there. They just bought one of the biggest tracts of land sold to a new build company just recently for like $250 million.
That's it?
Yeah. So... But it's the big question is, we have land, we have plenty of space, but do we have material? Do we have the labor? What's the, there's all these other ingredients. And, to what you were saying with millennials, it was traditional. And if you really look at it, another interesting stat is Phoenix is actually one of the lowest states for millennial loan apps.
Really?
Yeah. So we're literally like number 3 lowest in the country, behind Las Vegas. So it's all these other tech-driven cities, but I think that's another one of these positive things that we're saying. We have room to grow. We have our economy is being stimulated by all these other things, which everyone's saying, hey, millennials, where it's at. Well, we still have a lot of room. And these outlying areas, I think, is attractive to them now. They don't need urban epicenters. The virtual world is now tried
Mostly
and proven.
Virtual. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
people
it
are
can work
saying,
anywhere now. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I'm really curious to see how this does affect these traditionally, we'll say urban areas like Boston and the coastal cities that are just very dense. Are we going to turn into that new shining destination once our labor pool of their experience and drawing in bigger companies dangles that carrot? I think it's happening. I think we're going to see that big over the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, just speaking of, people moving out of the epicenter. It's funny because right before COVID hit, remember like the tiny house movement, and everybody wanted to get in closer and get tiny, teeny weeny. And now it's the complete opposite. Like even for us, like our house is a pretty decent size, but we're thinking to ourselves, well, man, if our kid stays home any longer from school, and we both work from home, and if we're kind of cooped up any longer this year, or if this is just life as we know it going forward, like I'm gonna make some changes, because we are way too on top of each other for that.
Everyone's thinking that.
It's just interesting. We're starting to see larger home sales a little bit, more frequently now. For the last 6 years, I've been writing an article for Arizona Foothills magazine once a week, and it's basically reporting on the top 10 most expensive sales in the Phoenix area mostly, but sometimes we get Flagstaff properties and stuff that hop on it. And normally, over the last 6 years, maybe 7 actually, normally you see, out of the top 10, maybe a couple that are in the 5 millions or the 4 millions.
Yeah, that was an anomaly.
Maybe, yeah. And I would always be like, babe, we've got one on the list this week. I'd be all excited because it's normally like 1 million, 2 million, 900, that kind of thing, right? This past week, there was nothing under, what did I tell you, 3.2.
Yeah, the way up to like 7,
all the way up to 7.5 were the top 10. And these are like massive residences. So I just thought that that was interesting. I mean, yeah, that's the kind of that other market that most of us are not playing in, let's face it. But I just thought it was interesting how I'm not only seeing that in our normal market, our everyday working market, but that one as well.
Yeah. Which is, yeah. And that is even looking at that and then looking at like you were saying, coastal cities, where is this money at? Arizona, when you think about it, you drive around Arizona, you drive through Carefree, you drive through Scottsdale, you drive through all these various sections and you see these pockets of houses and you go, wow, where does all this money come from?
What do they do for work?
And you're questioning, but then you stop and you think about it from a national stance. We just finally hit Zillow's top 25 cities, one of them, and it was Paradise Valley. And just think of that. Paradise Valley is the only one. Scottsdale's nowhere even close.
That's crazy.
The next closest would be, I believe, which is funny, which is Fort McDowell. Fort McDowell has an average home price of $860,000, where Scottsdale's average is like $560,000.
They have more homes.
They have way more, but you still think like, oh my gosh, like, yeah. It's great. I think it just says that there's just a lot of opportunity out there. And I think it's kind of like that glimmer of hope. People are really confident and we want to look to that level, that, hey, they're confident, we're doing good.
Yeah. And I mean, you probably see it too, Ryan. People are still moving here in droves from other states. I mean, I can't count on my fingers and toes how many buyers from specifically California that we've had this past year that have purchased listings sight unseen, cash. I'll see it when I see it. I'll be there in a couple of months. Just take care of the transaction for me. Like, no joke. I've got one right now. Mm-hmm. She's never even stepped foot across the Arizona line, never mind in this home.
Yeah.
So
Ryan, what's your take right now as far as like when you're getting, applications in and stuff like this? Are you noticing most of them are prepared and looking to kind of put the not the max, but the more money down versus erring towards least money, the least option down?
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing a lot of that right now, but we're still seeing a lot of first-time home buyers that are relying on the grant programs, the great grant programs that we have here in the Valley. For those of those who don't know, I know we did a podcast before on it, but there's two great programs, Home in 5 and Home Plus, that give you really your entire down payment and pay for some closing costs as well. So those are still really popular because we are starting to still get a lot of millennial applications, first-time home buyers in that age range. But we are seeing some of the people who are moving from out of state coming in with pretty large down payments, selling their homes in California. We got some people up in like the Oregon or Washington area that are just kind of sick of the rain that are coming down here too, and excited for warm weather. So we're seeing a lot of that as well. So it's kind of half and half, really.
And what about like the people that are looking to sell their home, and the people, it's called a contingency. If you're going to go ahead and buy a new home, and it would be contingent upon the sale of your home. Have you noticed like more people having the eligibility of not having to sell that home first and actually have two homes on the books before they sell the other?
Yeah, we see that a lot of the time, or we do see a lot of people who decide to hang on to the home, that they understand that home value is going to continue to increase and they don't want to just get rid of the house just yet. So we are seeing people, instead of having that contingency to sell the home, they just go ahead and get a lease agreement on it. And the great part about that is we could use that lease to offset that mortgage payment so they don't really have to qualify with two mortgages. So we're seeing a lot of that right now where Katie and Matt, I know you guys are big fans of that. Hang on to your home, rent it out, and build a good investment portfolio. And people are really following that line.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's not hard to rent a house out here in the Phoenix area. I can tell you that right now. I mean, I throw a rock and probably have 10 people that are ready, willing, and able to pay me top dollar to rent out my house. So it's not a problem at all.
Yeah.
And then, back to the first-time home buyers, I want to give them a little bit of a glimmer of hope out there because it is tough. Some of our first-timers are working with the DPA program, the down payment assistance program, which is great, but they also need assistance with their closing costs. Right. And, they're having to ask sellers to pay their closing costs, which in this market, could bump them out. I mean, they could become really not competitive with just that one piece. What kind of advice are you giving your buyers that are in that situation right now that just, you know, I mean, you can have all the tricks in your hat and sometimes you're writing offer after offer after offer because the buyer just has so many obstacles that the sellers are having trouble getting around. What kind of advice do you have for them?
So a lot of the times, yeah, with a lot of the millennials who are getting beat out just because they might need closing costs or they need some extra help from the sellers, what we're seeing a lot right now is they're using their family to help out. And
Yeah.
that's one great thing about the program is it does allow gifts from family members for down payment or help with closing costs. Also, you could rely on hopefully getting a tax refund. You know, we're seeing a lot of people taking
Yep.
advantage
Tis the
of
season.
filing their taxes early
Yep.
and using that for help with down payment and closing costs. But, you know, so many of them are tapping into the family to help out and to get into a home. And that's completely okay. And it's an easy thing to get approved as a gift from family members.
Good advice. And I personally feel like in this market, that's relatively risk-free because you can easily pay back your family with the equity gain, refinance in X amount of time. They would work with you on that. You know, just specifically, we're not going to use any names, but you and I had a client together that was under contract. They went under contract, like I think the end of November. So it was a little bit of a longer period. They just closed this week. It was a little bit of a longer escrow period, but the crazy part is that we had to go $15,000 over the list price in order to secure this property because they needed the same thing. They needed closing cost assistance. And so that's how we negotiated it. But get this, during the escrow period, okay, it was about 40 days, maybe it was a little longer. Their appraisal came back $30K higher than what we were under contract for. I'm like, oh my gosh, like $45,000 spread in a matter of 40 to 45 days. And so
Amazing.
it's crazy. And so I had to remind them, lovely ladies that they are, I had to remind them a couple of times because they were having to jump through some hoops to secure this property. I'm like, guys, you're literally walking through the door and somebody's like, here's 30K.
Yeah. And I think that's another reason too, to kind of reinforce if you're on the fence. You look at, there was something I was reading for December, the average home had $13,500 of equity in December alone of 2020. So that means people that are sitting around waiting for a better price or just really saying, hey, you know, what's that old saying, tripping over dollars, chasing dimes. And it's kind of one of those situations, not to make you feel bad that if you're not in a position to do that, but at the same time, if you're someone that's being very critical and saying, hey, what am I really trying to do? You could be costing yourself some money and a lot of headache by pumping the brakes.
Yeah, we still see a lot of people who are kind of nervous who maybe lived through 2006 through 10 that, you know, because like you mentioned with the new bills where they're doing, you know, bidding wars. You know, last time we saw that was back in 2006 and 7 where we were putting in lotteries and things like that. But the biggest difference between then and now is that inventory levels. They're at record lows now when there was a glut of them back then. And of course, you know, the mortgages that people qualify for now, they weren't those risky stated loans back then in 2006 and 7. Yeah, negative. There was a lot of crazy loans going on back there. Nowadays, you have to have, you know, your firstborn to qualify, it seems. So you really have to prove you can pay your mortgage. So those two things are really what's the big difference between back then and now. Really low inventory levels and people who are able to afford their mortgages. So there's no one getting behind.
Yeah, which is really good. So it's a lot more of a healthy sort of increase or healthy
market.
Than what we had dealt with before. So back to the millennials, I want to just give them a little bit of hope, a little glimmer before we part ways here. You know, their price point, their most popular price point for an entry level buyer is probably going to be, what do you think, like 250 to 300?
From what we're seeing, yes, that's correct.
So here's a couple of little slides here that I'd like to show you again, just to give our friends, the first timers, a little glimmer of hope. Let me look at this here real quick. Okay, so I don't know why my computer won't do it, but let's look at these showing stats. And you see the showing statistics. What do you see on the screen, Ryan? Am I not doing it right here?
Oh.
Did you see my whole computer screen?
Yeah, I saw your whole computer screen there.
Like all my text messages and everything. That was awesome. Yeah, go Katie. All right, this is what I wanted to see. So just real quick statistics that I pulled here. Kind of went by $50,000 increments. And I pulled 250 to 299. It's just a month's worth of statistics here, okay? And it's about 765 number of active listings in the 250 to 299 range, okay? So it's more than all of these others. Yeah. So they're the most.
And if you even really look at it, take a look at the next three. They're all within that average of 750 between, you're pretty much 400 to 250,000. You're going to be right around that average of 750.
Yep. So that's where the majority of our listings are that are active on the market, which is really great because if I show you this next slide, look at where all of our showings are at.
Oh, look at that. Yep.
Yeah.
Right in that range.
So our showings are in that range. That 250 to 299 range has the majority. And then like Matt pointed out, the next $100,000 up is by far. I mean, every other price point just really trails them.
And and that's where sometimes it's tough to and I'm never trying to tell someone that they should buy more than they're comfortable doing. But sometimes in markets like this, the difference of $10,000 to $25,000 in a purchase price, and when you look at that, what that costs in a monthly cost, it's not that big, but that little amount can actually get you exactly what you want.
Yeah,
get you really that home. Yeah,
less competition. It's so it's tough because one side I want to say be cautious, but at the other time in markets like this, I think it's kind of the best advice I can give you is if you're going to do it right. This is the time to do it. And I've got a couple that I worked with at the end of last year, the same thing. They were struggling and they said, we just got to bump it up about 20 grand. They looked at their finances and said, we can afford the difference if it was like $100 and something a month, but boom, next thing you know, dream house happened. And, so that line that you drew in the sand when you originally look at that, really consider it. And yeah.
Yeah, because an extra 25, 50,000, you might just make that up in XYZ amount of time. I mean, seriously. And
absolutely.
And we've always kind of guided our clients this way. When discussing what they should do, we've always asked the question, well, how long do you plan to live in a place?
That's the key.
Yes, exactly.
That's the key.
If this is forever, if they're like carrying you out, horizontally versus vertically of this house, like if this is it, man, what does it matter?
Yeah. Well, especially 5 to 10. If you know you're going to be in it for 10 years, don't even tripped up by the little stuff right now. Just get that late rate locked in and find the place you want to call home, and that's the most important thing you can do. All the other little things will come into play.
Totally agree. Anything else to add, Ryan?
Yeah, no, you mentioned that time and home, and that's kind of important for us too. We always have that discussion with our clients because when you're locking in an interest rate, there are options to buy down the rate even further, even though they're low right now. And typically it takes maybe 2 to 3 years to make that cost back with how much you're saving. But if you're going to live in the home 10, 15 years, that's going to save you over the long run. So yeah, it's interesting that you say that because that's a discussion everybody needs to have is how long do you plan on living in this home? And I'm glad that you guys always have that discussion as well.
For sure. And another discussion that I would advise everybody else to have with Ryan is once you get into your home, have that discussion, how long am I going to live here? And then figure out with him, talk with him about how to pay that down a little bit faster because Ryan's got some awesome
a lot of tricks to do that. Yep.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, Ryan, with Waterstone Mortgage. If anybody would like to get in touch with you to discuss the market or perhaps get approved for a new home loan or a refi, how would they get in touch with you?
You call me anytime directly. It's 480-635-3035.
Awesome. So what would we like people to do for us? Do you remember?
Well, we would like you to like, share, comment, engage. Next time at family dinner, bring us up. Say, hey, have you been listening to the R.E.A.L podcast with Matt and Katie? Especially that monthly one with Ryan. You're missing out if you're not. That's what we need you to do.
Yes, please, guys, subscribe, follow, download us on whatever platform is your favorite platform for listening to podcasts. It really helps us out a lot, helps us get the real news out to the real people. And oh, by the way, Team Evo AZ, yes, we are located in Phoenix, Arizona. However, we are branching out across the country. So if you or anybody you know is looking to get involved with, to partner with a dynamic team, maybe they just got into real estate, maybe they've been into real estate for a couple of years and they're just spinning their tires and they need something new and need something fresh, definitely get in touch with us because we are hiring across the country. We just opened up Team Evo Washington about 8 months ago, and we are looking to open up another state, at least one this year, maybe more. I don't know. Awesome. He has an ambitious wife. Look at him. He's like, oh my gosh, I can hear my honey-do list getting longer.
Just hang on.
All right, guys. Until next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.